Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a special Mythbuster episode of the Sit Rep Podcast. I am your host, Ariskany Jim, and today we are going to get back to some hobby craft, some hobby work, not just Hex Encounter stuff, and maybe do a little bit of myth busting. So, what myths are we going to bust? Well, believe it or not, I'm not going to go into some giant rivet counting. Well, this is the right tank, and that's the wrong tank, and how dare you use the wrong tank on your tables, and blah, blah, blah. That's not the kind of myth we're going to bust today, folks. The kind of myth we're going to bust today is the dark and mysterious myth and legend that stipulates if you run out of miniatures, you die in your lead pile. If you run out of unpainted, unbuilt miniatures, you literally see the great white light, and you slip these mortal bonds of earth and touch the face of God. I'm here to tell you, folks, that doesn't happen, because I have not had a lead mountain for literally 6 months. I have not had a single unbuilt miniature anywhere in my house, model, miniature, terrain piece, anything, for well over 6 months, between 6 months and a year. Let's call it 9 months. Hello, guys. How you doing? So, like I was saying, haven't had an unbuilt miniature in 6 months. Haven't bought a miniature in 2 years. I spent the better part of a year cleaning out my lead mountain, my pile of shame, my plastic heap, whatever you want to call it. And the reason I bring all this up is, if you give me just a moment to switch cameras here, and then find the right box. Wait for it, guys. Wait for it. Ariskany Jim has bought some miniatures. Oh my god, actual plastic, non-virtual, non-hex encounter. You put them on your table and you play like a small child. Actual miniatures. Oh my god. Not just one box, but I also bought some Abrams because go, Team America. And I also bought some, now don't hold this against me. Again, I go with historical accuracy. I also brought some Bradleys. Everyone knows, of course, that Bradleys had a very, very difficult, that's probably the best way to put it, very controversial development history. Measured in some ways, it's one of the worst APCs in the history of the business. In fact, it literally does half the mission of the vehicle that preceded it, the M113, actual carrying troops. I won't get on that soapbox, sorry guys. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. But in all seriousness, we're going to go ahead and destroy the myth that if you run out of miniatures, you actually expire. That actually is not true. That means for all you guys out there, guess what? You have no more excuse to finish your plastic mountain. You can't hide behind the idea that, well, if I finish my plastic mountain, I'm going to die. That ain't how it works. Trust me. Nevertheless, guys, I do have a plastic mountain now. It's exactly these 3 boxes. My Bradleys, my Abrams, and my T-80s. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be working on the T-80s. Alright. Uh-oh, did I just give away Gaz's nickname? Yes, Gareth is Gaz. Very happy to see you back on the stream, guys. Seriously happy about that. Alright, so this is going to be part unboxing, I guess, and part actual hobby build. Because, the box isn't, very huge. It doesn't have a whole lot of, books or, superfluous materials in it. It's, you know what? Battlefront, I want some miniatures. Charge me some miniatures, and I'll buy some miniatures. Notice, of course, this is for Team Yankee, so it has the old 1980s hammer and sickle on there for the Soviet Union. Not sure if I'm going to build these as Russian vehicles or not. Honestly, the Russians don't use the T-80 that much anymore. In modern times, like sadly what we see in Ukraine right now. Almost any time you see a T-80 in that newsreel footage, it's Ukrainian. And there's a whole spiel about that I probably won't get into. So I'm going to build these 5 T-80s. I won't build all 5 of them here on the stream. I'll probably build the first one. Maybe we won't even finish that, but we'll see how it goes. But we're going to take a look at the product. We're going to maybe build the first one. And later on, we might come back, especially if you guys like this kind of content here on Sit Rep Podcast. I'll build the rest of them and maybe start putting some paint on them. And again, also have some Abrams and some Bradleys. I'm not sure if I'm going to put those Bradleys and Abrams in the 4-color European camouflage or desert. Because honestly, the whole Team Yankee thing, the miniatures are great. I'm not even going to say anything about the rule system. The actual setting, a lot of people are doing it now because everyone wants to play moderns, and playing Ukraine isn't terribly in good taste right now. So we're kind of stepping back a little bit, and we're doing some more of the 1980s Tom Clancy, Harold Coyle, Ralph Peters, Team Yankee stuff. It's like a little more culturally safe, if that's the right phrase. Gaming a war game taking place in Ukraine right now, it's just a little bit in bad taste. So, or at least I've made that decision for myself. I don't judge what anyone else is doing on their tables. But anyway, I've never really been a big. Again, I know I did a stream on this literally like 5 days, not even like 4 days ago. But the whole 1980s Team Yankee thing, like the scenario itself, not the game. I'm not talking about the miniatures of the game. The miniatures are great. But the whole setting is just kind of, I won't say I was there, but I was kind of there. Did Twilight 2000 in the mid-1980s, did GDW Assault in the 1980s, did Panzer Bleeder 1970 in the 1980s, joined the U.S. Marine Corps, was actually in the military in the 1980s, so kind of, been there, done that kind of thing. So, long story short, I might put these in Ukrainian markings, but later on when I paint them, later on when hopefully that conflict has either entered a more stable phase or has sizzled out a little bit. I'm not expecting it to end anytime soon. It's been going on for 8 years already, technically. But, yeah. The Soviet, I shouldn't say the Soviet Union, the actual Russian army doesn't use T-80s that much anymore. The T-80s that you see in that footage from Ukraine conflict is pretty much almost all Ukrainian. The Russians lost the factories that built the T-80 predominantly. Again, there are some small ones up near St. Petersburg, but the big factory, the Kharkov tractor plant, that fell into Ukrainian hands when the Soviet Union fell apart in 1991. So the factories that built the parts, the engines, the turrets, the whole 9 yards, the ammunition for the specific 125 millimeter gun that Jen was mentioning earlier in the stream, that's all, or I shouldn't say all, that's mostly in Kharkov. So the Soviets, I should say the Russians, post-1991, were left with only their existing T-80 fleet. They sent it into Chechnya in 94, 95, and then again in 2004, 2005. They didn't do very well. They did so badly, the Soviets, there we go again, the Russians largely pulled them out of service. We're seeing them back in service now in 2022. So, but in small numbers. Not 19 out of 20 times you see a T-80 on the news, it's Ukrainian, because the factories are in Ukraine. The Ukrainians have then upgraded this with new guns, new reactive armor, new optics, new targeting computers, things like that. And then you get all kinds of different upgrades. I think the latest one is the T-84, which became the T-84M, which became, the T-84M, the T-84 O-Plot, and the T-84 O-Plot-M, which, again, I won't get up onto that soapbox. You won't see any of those fighting in the Ukraine, even though they're the best tanks Ukraine has ever produced, because they sold them all to the Royal Thai Army. That's what happens when, your government is not quite, I'm speaking in past tense. Obviously, there's been a bit of a shakeup in the Ukraine lately, but before the war and before Zelensky, under old guys like, what was his name, the Chocolate King, and I can't remember the guy who was before him, government was a little corrupt, just a touch, and the oligarchs that actually ran these arms manufacturers in Ukraine weren't going to sell to their own government because their own government couldn't afford what they wanted to charge. So their best tanks all went out to other countries. Nevertheless, you do see a lot of old school T-80s in Ukraine, so the tank is definitely still relevant, even though it's not really used in large numbers by the Russian army. It was never widely exported. It's not like the T-55 or the T-72. And again, a lot of upgrades, so if you want to kit bash these a little bit, if you want to upgrade these to the new T-40, T-80, T-80U, T-80B, V, T-80, I can't remember all the variants, of the T-40, T-84 M3s, there's a million and one variants. The Ukrainian army has put the T-80 through, up to and including, I think, the T-84M. The Ukrainians also use a lot of this tank's granddaddy, the T-64, the great dark horse of the Cold War. Probably one of the best tanks of the overall Cold War period that no one ever hears about, is the T-84. That's one of the great things. I'm going to say something nice about Team Yankee, so again, hold on to your britches. Try not to shit your pants. The Risky Jim's going to say something nice about Team Yankee. One of the greatest things about Team Yankee is when the Red Thunder box came out, and I looked at the cards for the T-64s, and it looks like the T-64 is a better tank than the T-72. I was like, thank you, somebody is listening. And the T-64 was then developed into this bad boy, the T-80. They called this the Channel Dash tank because this tank was originally equipped with a gas turbine, much like the American M1, and was supposed to be able to reach the English Channel in like 48 hours or something. I mean, not one tank driving on its own, but like a division of these things they were afraid was going to be able to reach the English Channel in like 2 to 3 days. Of course, that never happened, but there we go. All right, so enough jibber jabber, enough background. Let's talk about the actual. Let's talk about the hobby. Let's actually get to the vehicles here. Hello, Damon. Welcome to the chat. Gareth says in the chat, normally it is when I'm in trouble when my full name got used. I hear ya. When my dad came home and it was like, Jimmy boy, where you at? I'm like, okay, cool. But when dad came home and it was James, oh shit, here we go. Mom told on me again, like she always did. That's okay. What's motivated you to go for? Oh, I'm sorry. So Gas also asked, what's got you motivated to go for these minis, buddy? That's a good question. Normally my miniatures are very, very. You know what? Let me open the box while I speak to the chat here. So everyone's seen the box. It comes with 5 T-80s, 5 unit cards. It comes all in plastic. What you feel or don't feel, or how you like or don't like Team Yankee the game, you can't fault their miniatures. Their miniatures are actually pretty badass. Once in a while you come across a weird thing, like I'm not 100% happy with my Syrian T-54s. The scale on those is a little off compared to other tanks, but it's fine. By and large, Battlefront makes ridiculously awesome miniatures. So, the box comes with 5 tanks. Here we go. So to Gas's question, what actually got me into these miniatures? I just haven't built anything in forever. I got tired of not building stuff. And I was like literally fumbling around for a topic. Honestly, I don't know what asked me to get. I wanted to get some more modern stuff, especially in 15 mil, because a lot of my current modern stuff is in 20 mil. And so I was like, but a lot of it's in 15 ever since I got into the Team Yankee boot camp back in 2015. I have a huge Soviet force, all of T-72s. I think I have like 18 T-72s, 10 BMPs, 10 T-55s, a shit ton of BTR-60s. I have everything but the T-80. And I know it's not the best tank, but T-80 is just one of my favorite tanks. So I've never done an unboxing video, so I have no idea what I'm doing here. I just take the stuff out of the box. Is that what you do? Here's the stuff out of the box. Alright, so empty box to be saved later. Built into buildings. Looks like the tanks are on 2 sprues. So we got 1 sprue for mostly the hull, the gun, some of those little side plates, smoke dischargers. Believe it or not, that's probably not a Dushka. That's probably the newer NSV machine gun that they put on the turret roof. I think it's called the NSV. So that's 1 sprue. Looks like the other sprue is the majority of the turret, the track, road wheel, and suspension system, mine clearing spades if you want to use those, and the rest of the turret. The turret floor, 2 turret hatches. Okay, so those are our sprues. Comes with the cards, because you need the cards to play the game. Normally I don't like games with cards, but this isn't card like a deck of cards that you have to shuffle and draw from. This is just like literal. Rather than have the book open for the stat line, you've got the cards you can play with. This is more like play aids than actual cards. So hopefully I'm not getting too much glare off those. So we'll save those in a cool dry place because you need those to play the game. And then some options for commanders. Everyone has their own little deal about what they do with commanders. I usually just put one in a commander's hatch so I know who the commander is. I also number my tanks specifically so that you can tell who the commander is. The Soviet tactical numbering system isn't that hard to figure out. So again, to Gaz's question, what motivated me to get into these miniatures in particular? It's just been filling a gap, and I've been wondering, like, normally the miniatures I've been building over the last 5 years have all been project based. I used to write for Beasts of War, then on Tabletop, did video projects for SitRep Podcast. Obviously, I'm doing a video project for SitRep Podcast now, but it was always like, okay, what project's coming up? Buy those miniatures for that project and very, very hurriedly build them. I very often didn't have like time to just sit down and relax and enjoy the hobby because I had to build and paint 20 tanks before like next Tuesday, and then put them in a box and ship them to a convention or ship them to a studio or build a table and photograph them or shoot a video or whatever. I don't have any miniatures projects now, so nevertheless, I felt like I had to build something. And we also, we want to put hobby content on the SitRep Podcast as well, not just Panzer Leader, Valorant Victory, Naval Command, Air War C-21, SitRep Skirmish, either Hex Encounters or virtual miniatures game. We want to have some old school knife and paintbrush hobby on our channel as well. So rather than just build a bunch of miniatures like just for the channel, I also just wanted to, let me build something that I can actually use. So again, I'm not entirely sure. If it sounds like a roundabout answer, that's not by accident. To the point where, like I said earlier in the stream, I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to paint these. If I'm going to put them in old Russian, 1980s markings or Ukrainian markings. I don't know yet. Because a T-80 in today's world is 90% Ukrainian. A T-80 in the 1980s is, of course, going to be Soviet. Hello, Quick173. Welcome to the chat. How available are these miniatures in the USA? Asked Cass. Actually, I couldn't get them all from one source. So I think the T-80s came from Noble Knight Games. It's a great website. They deliver very fast. Their inventory system is not one of those, like, I don't know if it's real time, but it's pretty close to real time. It's not one of those websites that tells you it's active or that it's available, and then you order it, you send them their money, and they say your order's been placed on back order. I freaking hate that. Every time I hear that, I want to just, cut somebody from head to toe and wear their skin like a suit. I work in supply chain. That's actually like straight out dishonest. It's borderline scam. But Noble Knight is not like that. And then the Bradleys and the Abrams I got from the actual Battlefront website. Now, what makes these miniatures pretty available here in the U.S. is they do have a distribution center here in the States. I think it's in Maryland. So it gets here in like a week. And I ordered rush shipping, and rush shipping was like $10. So it's not that big a deal. America's a big country, lots of money, lots of market. So most miniatures companies make sure that their stuff is pretty available over here. In fact, usually you hear the opposite. Like I remember the Hero Quest rage. When Hero Quest was finally re-released, and it was just so much fun watching people in the UK just weep, wail, and gnash their teeth. That, it wasn't going to be for sale. I don't know if they ever got that straightened out, but I got a heck of a lot of, what do they call that, Schadenfreude? I got a lot of happiness out of their angst over that. And I kept offering them. I'm like, look, I'll buy 10 of them and I'll ship them to you. And I won't even charge you anything. These people are my friends. I want to do them a favor. But I don't even know if that would be legal. Now, I'd ship them to you for a cost. Like the cost of the game and the shipping, which wouldn't have been cheap. Because the game was not cheap. And shipping transatlantic is nothing to sneeze at. Alright, just before we start, I'm going to put a new blade in my my knife, which I probably should have done before the stream started. Brand new blade. When in doubt, safety tip, put in a brand new blade. A new sharp blade is a lot less dangerous than an old dull blade. We all know the reasons why. Of course, until I can't get the stupid thing to reclose. There we go. Put that away. Let me check out the rest of the stream here. Jennifer Lemon says, Amazon has some, but the selection is kind of random. Schadenfreude. Yeah, did I mispronounce that? Hello, Rondi. Welcome to the chat. Don't mention Hero Quest. See, I told you guys. Sometimes I'm not the nicest of guys. I got the biggest kick out of watching people in Ireland, the UK, Germany, just freak the fuck out over how pissed off they were about that Hero Quest thing. That was funny as shit. Long story short, now taking a drink. Right, there you go. Long story short. I think he's already at number 3, so I'm behind in my shots. Yeah, guys, we often kid about every time a Risky Jim says, long story short, take a shot. Guys, don't do that. You'll wind up in the hospital. And we're not responsible for your bills when they have to pump your stomach. Gaz says, normally when you say Dushka, I start looking for a technical or a shopping trolley with one mounted in it, right? Let me see what I can find here. And I don't know how good the camera focus is going to be. But we do have, obviously, the Dushka, and then we have the newer, I believe it's called an NSV. I might have to Google that to be 100% sure. This is one of my old Battlefront T-70s. T-72s. And actually, that is not a Dushka either. That's the NSV. Okay, good. Let me get one of my Syrian T-55s. Because that, I believe, does have the Dushka on it still. So, yeah, you can see what I mean when I say the T-54s. Look at that. Look at the size difference. The back bumper is now lined up. Look how much smaller that tank is. One of the few times I haven't liked Battlefront miniatures, right there. That's from the T-54 box set, Syrian Army box set. I used it for my 1991 Iraqis for Gulf War. But the tank is all to scale with itself, the different parts of the tank. However, let me see if I can get that in a little bit better focus. Alright, you know what? I'm not going to mess with it because I'm just going to break something. Is that going to autofocus for me? No. Alright, give me a second, guys. I want to maybe play around with this. Just for one more minute, then we'll just do with what we got before I break something. You know, we're just gonna leave it alone. Knowing me, I'll break something, and then I'll be upset. All right, so the turret machine guns. Yeah, this focus isn't so hot. Let's see if this helps anything. Yeah, now at least you can see the shape of the machine guns. The Dushka, of course, is very famous. That's in this Syrian tank over here to the left. That's the old DSHK machine gun, 12.7 millimeter, 50 caliber, whatever you choose, left over from World War II. I think it's technically the M1938, 12.7 millimeter HMG. It's that old, 1937, 1938. It's an old thing. 106 pounds, fully assembled, fully loaded. It's a beast. We've seen it in 101 movies. And then here we have the much newer NSV. Again, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. I'm going to find out that I'm wrong on that, and then I'm going to be embarrassed. But basically, it's just the same weapon. It's just a newer version. Game terms, it's the same. It's a heavy machine gun. This one's just probably easier to manufacture, a little bit lighter, and so on and so forth. All right, so it looks like it's the NSV is what they give us on the sprue. which totally makes sense. You can tell the most easily you can tell it doesn't have that gigantic, almost tulip-shaped muzzle brake, that very distinctive muzzle flash suppressor that you get on the Dushka. Also, doesn't have that huge. Not all Dushkas have it, but very often on the Dushka you see that gigantic anti-aircraft sight, that iron sight they have planted on the top. To all the children watching, Jim is an experienced hobbyist, and researching into a box of bare metal scalpel blades should be carried out by an adult. Oh yeah, I guess I should probably say that, huh? And I've already busted something off the sprue. Yeah, don't just reach into a box of razor blades. Thanks for the health and safety help there, Gaz. I appreciate it. It's kind of funny, but also kind of sucks that things aren't available worldwide. Yeah, I shouldn't laugh, but it's. Again, it wasn't the problem that I was laughing at, it was more like the reaction. I mean, some of these guys, I won't mention anyone by name, but some of these guys were really getting, I'm like, dude, talk about uptown problems, man. There's a lot worse problems in the world right now than you can't get your game from like 50 years ago. None of my games, my favorite games have been in print since 1982, so I don't have a lot of sympathy for that, I guess. A decent box of Panzerleader will cost you, if you can find one, a fair amount of money. Not because of any kind of production value. In fact, the production value is pretty poor, but just because of its age. We're talking about a box of paper and cardboard, basically, from 1978. A 45-year-old box of cardboard. There's not many of them left, especially in any kind of decent condition. Now, only because Gas is on the stream, I'm going to make sure I clean off the little sprue points. You know, Gas is very particular about that kind of stuff. That and his mold lines. In fact, here's some pretty bad mold lines here. Yeah, you know what? Gaz was kind of kidding before, but I should probably say something more serious. Don't do anything like how I'm doing it. These aren't meant as tutorials. This video is marked as not for children. Like cutting with a razor blade toward my thumb like this probably isn't the smartest idea, but if I cut and start bleeding everywhere, the worst they can do is demonetize me. And that was the, oh, okay, we're still talking about, oh, NSVT. I was close. I was only off by one letter. NSVT 12.7, according to Zaloga. Yeah, I was off by a letter. In fact, I think it's the NSV is the machine gun, the T is the tank version. Because the PK is like that. They call it the PKM, it's called the PKT or something. Is the coax that goes beside the 125mm smoothbore. So I may have actually been right. But technically I'm talking about the one that goes on the tank, and the tank does have the T in it. So I was off by one letter. To be fair. So I know there's a lot of there's a lot of opinion. Whether it's better to use a razor or snips to get your piece out of the sprue. I like using a knife. I'm probably going to put way too much work into these miniatures. Because like I said, normally when I'm building miniatures, it was for a project. Something that had to come out like right now. Or the next week, or you know, for a video series or for an article series or something like that. Not this time. This time I actually get to do what normal people do, which is enjoy hobby for hobby. Jen, is the music too loud or too soft? Or anyone in the chat, let me know if the music is too loud or too soft. I apologize for last week's hobby stream. It was kind of low quality. I couldn't get the right camera to work, so the resolution was way down, the focus was way off. Probably even more than this one is. And is that the Snorkel? Oh yeah, because it gets folded up on the back of the turret. So one thing that's very prevalent in Russia / the former Soviet Union, and you definitely see this in the current war, history guys like myself learn this very, very fast when we're studying World War II, where all the real big battles took place out east. Is Russia is a land of rivers. That is, there are no real mountain ranges that you have to contend with when invading or defending Russia. It is rivers, rivers, rivers. It is by far the biggest terrain feature you have to contend with. And I'm talking about big rivers. Rivers that make, like the Dnieper, the Don. These are rivers literally literally under contest right now. I just kind of scabbed up that tank barrel a little bit there, but that's alright. Paint should cover that. Here's the other smoke discharger that did not come off by accident, so put those up there. Lots of rivers, and big ones too. I'm not talking about like, you know, the little rivers you see elsewhere in Europe. Big rivers, like bigger than the Rhine, bigger than the Danube, bigger than the Thames, bigger than a lot of the rivers in America. Probably only like the Mississippi and the Missouri hold a candle to these rivers. And there's a lot of them too. So my point is, Russian tanks have always had, I mean, river crossing capability is a big deal for Russian tanks. A big, big deal. And even if things had finally gone down in Germany, you would have had obstacles like, you know, the Weser and so on. Even before you reach the Rhine, you would have had other rivers to contend with. That is the little peg that sits into the turret. Like so. That's how you attach. That's whether or not you want to magnetize your tank. Actually magnetize the turret on your tank. So some hobbyists might not use that piece. Did I get everything off the sprue? Nope, I got one more little piece here. Making sure my head is not coming into camera. So Damon has appointed himself the technical advisor for this stream. Thank you very much, Damon. Because he just bought a bunch of books that actually deal almost specifically with this material. And while I know this stuff, I kind of know it off the top of my head, which means I'm wrong half the time. So. Check the sprue one more time, save it just in case I do wind up I miss something. Grab the other sprue, let's got all the other parts on it. Check out Mr. Chat. Music seems fine to me, thanks very much, guys, appreciate it. Sound is fine. There is about a 30-second delay between when you talk and when we hear it. Yeah, that's just stream latency. In fact, 30 seconds is really good. Usually it's more like a minute, or maybe even more. So, yeah, that's not a big deal with that at all. Okay, hold on. We got some more chats here to go to. Ron D says, I think Adam Savage said something to the effect that cutting always towards yourself is safer. Yeah, cutting towards yourself is safer. But what I was doing before was like holding the piece like this and like literally cutting toward my thumb like this. I've never cut my thumb open like that, but I don't want someone to see what I'm doing here and get the idea that I know what the frig I'm doing, because trust me, I absolutely do not. And then the next thing you know, they're heading to the minor injury center. Nobody needs that. I've only really had in my life one serious hobby accident. Where I actually messed myself up. Pretty bad. And it was at this very table, in this very chair. It was at a cutting board just like this, but not this exact one. And I was building 1 to 300 terrain for my Battletank miniatures. And it was because the knife was dull. So I like to keep a nice sharp blade in the knife whenever I can. I was trying to cut something, kind of like this, but it was like pine. It wasn't balsa because it would have gone right through it. It must have been pine. Again, I was scratch building terrain, buildings specifically for my Battletank miniatures. So it just wouldn't go through. It wouldn't go through. And I was trying to saw it, and I was trying to do this, and I was trying to cut with it, and it just wasn't working. So like a dumbass, I finally just started doing this with it and like leaning down on it. And wouldn't you know, the dull blade snapped, and in like a millisecond, the blade broke, and my hand kind of went down like this, and the broken end of the blade, it wasn't even like I got stabbed by the knife, by the blade itself. I got broken by the edge of the blade that had snapped. It was still sticking up because the point had embedded itself in the board, and that thing went in to the hilt. So I had like 3/4 of an X-Acto knife buried like that into my hand. I think you can still, maybe not come out there, you can probably still see the mark there. That was a fair amount of blood all over the dining room floor. It was more of a puncture than a laceration, so I didn't have to get stitches or anything, but that thing was bleeding like a sumbitch for a while. And again, it was a broken end of metal, so it wasn't even a cut, so yeah, it hurt a lot. Sometimes with these knives, especially when they're new, you cut yourself, you barely feel it. It's like, where'd all this blood come from? Holy shit, I've been cut. No, this was, I just got stabbed by the broken end of an orcish spear. Ow, that's a little tickle. I'm probably not even going to use these mine clearing blades, but I'm cutting them off just in case. You know what, I'll put them in my bits box. Or maybe I'll make one as an engineering vehicle or something, I don't know. A lot of detail on this turret. I really wish I could get this in better focus. That's a technical limitation on my part. Do I even want to mess with this? Sorry guys, I'm just taking a look at whether or not I can, no, that's not really going to help. Make sure it's still working. No, I don't want a photo timer. Oh no! Huh. There used to be a way to, like a little manual focus bar over here to the side. Oh well, like I said, I'm not gonna mess with it to the point where I break something. But I wonder if it will autofocus if I go slowly enough. Come on, autofocus, autofocus. You don't want to do it for me, huh? You don't want to be, come on, do it for daddy. Do it, come on. No? Nah, the hell with you. Take my word for it. There's a lot of great detail on this turret. The one thing that might prevent me from putting this in Ukrainian markings is the reactive armor panels. that they did put on the front of the turret here. These reactive armor panels are a little out of date. They're for the 1980s. They're perfect for what they say. They're perfect for what they're selling. You know, the T-80 tank company that you would have seen in the 1980s. So there's nothing wrong with the miniature. I'm just talking about why I can't really repurpose it for a 2022 Ukrainian armored vehicle. I mean, I guess I could. I might have to do a little bit of kit bashing just on those two turret faces. So in the Ukraine footage that you see on the news, you're going to see one of the fastest way to tell the difference between a Russian and Ukrainian tank is if it has small wheels, like smaller than this, it's probably Ukrainian, because it's probably, well, first of all, if it's a tank or not, and I'm not going to go down into that debate, or I should say that lecture, because trust me, it's not a debate. I'm talking about a tank, not one of these things that the tractors are towing around. I'm talking about an actual tank. So once you've cleared that hurdle, how do you tell if it's a Ukrainian or a Russian tank? Don't go by the Z, because trust me, that can't be relied upon. That Z that's so famous in the news, that is a tactical operations group marking that is only for a relatively small portion of what's going on over there. There are a lot of other numbers and letters, or mostly letters, besides Z that's being used. So you can't go by the Z, trust me. Number two, some Ukrainian units have been reported to painting Zs on their tanks, so the Russians won't shoot at them until it's too late. Because it's really easy to put an improvised marking on your vehicle. There are also some deepfakes. Some people who are less than scrupulous, either in the press or in the intelligence community, that are trying to post news, like little false flag stuff about there. You know, here's a Russian tank that has surrendered, and it's got a perfectly stenciled Z on there that looks nothing like the Z that these guys are splashing on there with whitewash. Like crudely hand painted. It looks like I put the Z on there. That's how bad it is. So you can't go by the Z. You go by, and this goes, you know what, to take a less serious take on this, this also goes for movies. How to tell if a tank is really what it is supposed to be. Look at the wheels. That's the one thing they can't really fake. We've all seen the Tiger, air quotes, in Saving Private Ryan. We've all seen the Tiger, air quotes, in Kelly's Heroes. The turret and gun look damned convincing on those tanks. It's just half the size of a Tiger, because it's originally, on both cases, a T-34 chassis. And the wheels look very, very different. The additional mistake they made in Kelly's Heroes was how they drove the tank. They drove the tank like it was a T-34. There's one scene in Kelly's Heroes where the Tiger literally does a fishtail in the town square. A T-34 can do that. A Tiger, not so much. But one way you can tell, again, if you're talking about serious news sources out of Ukraine or just movie stuff, look at the wheels. So the other way you can kind of tell, is for the Ukraine, is the reactive armor panels. If the reactive armor panels, oh, I don't have that kind of tank. Hold on, give me one more second. I'll actually find the physical examples of what I'm talking about. And then we'll continue. So we're going to be looking at a Russian T-72 in 15mm first. This is originally a Zvezda model. It's actually, ironically, a Russian miniature company. Okay, and what you're looking at, and I'm sure you've seen tons of this stuff by now on the news, these large wedge-shaped reactive armor pieces. This is what they call Contact 5 or K5. This is what's on the Russian tanks. Okay, the wheels are also pretty big. It's borderline Christie suspension, 6 wheels to the side. The only time you see 7 wheels is if it's some kind of engineering vehicle, and again, by then it's not a tank. Alright, so that's how you tell a Russian vehicle. Now this is in 20 mil, so the tank's going to be a lot bigger. But this is a Ukrainian T-64. Again, the same 6 wheels, but you'll notice the wheels are a lot smaller compared to the rest of the vehicle. That's a T-64. Torsion bar suspension, not a borderline Christie suspension. I don't think it's technically Christie, but it's close. But the T-64 had a much more of a torsion bar thing, so the wheels are a lot smaller. And all the reactive armor looks much more brick-like. If it looks like someone stacked a pile of bricks on the tank, it's older reactive armor. It's Ukrainian. That's going to get you 90% of the way. There are some Russian tanks with the older reactive armor, especially as they've taken more and more losses and they've had to bring some of their older T-80Bs into service. So, yeah. It's not absolute, but that's kind of how you get close. How you would tell, if it's a T-64, it's I would be amazed if I saw a T-64 in Russian service. However, it would look, a T-80 in Russian service would still have these old brick-style reactive armor panels on there and the larger road wheels. It would pretty much be a combination of these two vehicles. Again, different scales. Larger road wheels, because the T-80 went back to the larger road wheels. Larger road wheels and the more brick-like reactive armor panels. That's probably a Russian T-80. If it's a Russian tank at all. But if you see that kind of stuff, T-80 with the brick-like reactive armor, it's almost certainly Ukrainian. Like literally 95%. BMPs, good friggin' luck with that. The only kind of help you might have there, if you're trying to identify them, is a Ukrainian BMP might have an RPG cage on it. So if you see a wrecked BMP, armored personnel carrier with an RPG cage on it, it's probably Ukrainian. Which is why most of the ones you've seen that are wrecked are not having an RPG cage on it, because the Russians are taking more vehicle losses, and the Ukrainians, if they're not going to take pictures of their own wrecked vehicles, and even if they did, they would take the RPG cage off and tell you it's a Russian vehicle. Because I'm not trying to say the Ukrainians are bad guys, but they are trying to win a war. They're facing choices that none of us have ever had to face. God willing, we ever will. This war was not their idea. Alright, but enough of that. Let me get a drink and then check the chat. Ugh. Adam had an accident during one of his one-day build videos too. Uh-oh. I hope he used up all the bad luck, and I hope I don't have any accidents. Even the best cut themselves. I mean, once in a while I'll nick myself, or like I'll cut a little piece out of my thumbnail or something. That's the only bad hobby accident I've ever had. Happy to say. Yep, step with the blade. Yeah, that was a rough one. Ron D says, yeah, I feel the pain. Eep. Yeah, I mean, I finished the project. It was about an hour delay, but I swear to God, I went back and I built the rest of those buildings. For my old Battletank 1-300. So like an entire sci-fi building, like a sci-fi skyscraper, like a 60-foot building, is like that. Because this mech is like 30 or 40 feet in lore. So obviously it's a wildly different scale. It's basically 6 mil. 1-285, 1-300. I have seen leftover sprues, says Gaz. I've seen leftover sprues put to good use as minefields, where they are pushed into filler, leaving the small circles protruding as the mines. And oh, okay. And then add things like fences and basing materials. That's a pretty cool idea. Yeah, it almost looks like that could be your minefield. Like all these little dots would look like little anti-tank mines. Little M21 tilt rod anti-tank mines. Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. I've seen some people use them for rubble. I chop up little bits. I use them as gun barrels sometimes. Or like sometimes I'll use them as almost like what they were designed for, like literal supports. Like if I'm trying to build a building and I want some internal structure in there, I'll just cut up pieces of sprues. These little join points or these little dots make great little connection points in that case. Because as you've seen in previous videos, guys, I build a lot of my own buildings. I don't ever really scratch build my own miniatures, except for when I do. I won't pull any of those out now because the stream's already going to be too long. But I build like literally all my own buildings, and I have a shit ton of buildings. I do a lot of World War II, and I do a lot of moderns. And the unfortunate thing about modern warfare is increasingly taking place inside cities. So yeah, we see that everywhere from Grozny to Aleppo to Mariupol, Kharkov, a lot of battle inside cities. So never mind the real world unfortunate nature of that, it's also an additional challenge on the miniatures table because you got to build a lot of buildings. So I own a lot of buildings. Bits box, almost as cool as a bag of heads. We have a bag of heads. Basically a bag, or at least a bag of torsos. We have a shit ton of these things. Because again, out of this whole sprue, I'll literally use, this whole box, I'll literally use one. That leaves me with 5 extra. And that happens every time I buy a box. So you wind up with a huge population of semi-dismembered people. I'm sure a lot of people have that. Gaz also says, are you telling me that Oddball's tank barrel extension wasn't an optional extra in the factory? That thing would have flown off the tank the first time he fired the gun, but it's Oddball, so he gets away with it. Not my favorite character in the movie. I realize it's a comedy, but I've long held a theory, and maybe you guys can chime in on this. You can tell what kind of gamer somebody is, because everybody has seen Kelly's Heroes. You ask them who their favorite character is in Kelly's Heroes, and who they give you. Normally it will be Oddball, because that's kind of the I don't want to say generic, but kind of the generic answer. But who they say is their favorite character tells you a lot about the gamer, or at the very least, like what kind of game they play. Like literally, as a quick example, I'll get the conversation started. My favorite character in that is not Kelly's Hero. I'm sorry, it's not Oddball. I don't think he's the funniest guy in the show. Funniest guy in that show is Carol O'Connor playing General Colt. His scenes are friggin' gold. That over-the-top pat and parody. Except he only commands, he's a 2-star general, but he commands an army. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to Kelly's Heroes. They get a lot of things wrong. I mean, it's not really supposed to be a historical movie. There's a surprising amount of history in it, though, believe it or not. Like down to incidental lines. Again, to my boy General Colt. He comes off the banister in his headquarters at that mansion where he's staying at, like the first time you meet him. He's calling for his communications officer. And he says, Booker! The old man was just on the line. Congratulates me on my great victory. Tells me I've broken through along an entire front. Why wasn't I told? Communications officer comes back. No one's broken through, sir. It seems as if someone's found a hole in the right flank. They're trying to push elements of the 35th and the 321st into it. That's not just number gibberish. He's referring to the 39th Infantry Division and the 321st Tank Battalion, which was attached, to my knowledge, to the 35th Infantry Division. There's little nuggets of history in there. The Battle of Nancy did happen. That whole supply line snafu did happen. The nature of the battlefield, where it was that open and that confused, nobody knew where our lines were, nobody knew where the German lines are, that was true. We're talking about early to mid September 1944. So they even get it looks like summer, but not really. It's like early autumn in France. Now, I know they filmed that movie in Yugoslavia, but there's a decent amount of history in that. But they get some things wrong too. But yeah, Carol O'Connor, like the guy who plays with divisions and armies and corps. He's my favorite character, and yeah, that's kind of the game I like to play, or the scale I like to play on. Most people like individual tank skirmish games like this, so they like Oddball. Tele Savalas is if you like infantry games. If the guy comes back with crap game, don't invite him over to your house. He's going to steal something out of your house. And I say that with every awareness because during my real life time in the real life military, I kind of was crap game. That was literally me. I was a supply NCO. Granted, he's like I think he's a gunnery sergeant, or I don't know what they call it in the army, like a platoon sergeant or something, sergeant first class. I was okay when Kelly goes and talks to Crab Game, and Crab Game looks over his shoulder and says, "Hey Harry, get yourself a haircut." He's getting rid of the little corporal behind his desk. I'm Harry. I'm literally the guy that worked for Crab Game. That was me in the military. So what I'm saying is, don't trust anyone who's like Crab Game. The guy's name is Crab Game, so do the math. Alright, so this is where we got for instructions. Yeah, Don Rickles was a riot. And I'm just kidding. I'm literally making fun of my own MOS before somebody else does it for me. Alright, these wheels are now supposed to fit in here, although, ooh, Battlefront, what are you doing to me? Okay, they're supposed to fit, again, I wish I had better focus on this. Okay, there it is. I see what's going on. Alright, I thought I did. Not the cleanest of fits, but I get what they want me to do. Okay. So the join points are, as we all seen. Again, this isn't trying to be a tutorial. You guys know more about this stuff than I do. The join point, these little flutes here are deliberately asymmetrical, so you can't put them on wrong. You can't put the tracks on back to front or anything like that. The only somewhat tricky part is this tiny little cradle here that is supposed to fit under this fuel tank that I really wish miniature modelers would stop putting on Russian tanks. Yes, we've all seen the photos. We've all seen these extra fuel tanks on the back of Soviet vehicles. You guys know that in combat these are ejected, right? These are detached. Basically, on the road march, the Soviets are drawing their fuel out of this. That way their actual onboard tanks remain full. And then when they come close to a forward area, like when they come close to a forward edge of a battle area or a forward line of troops, whatever you want to call it, whatever your military tends to call that, basically a fancy word for the front line, point of contact. That's when that gets ejected and they go onto their own a lot like fighter planes do. They use up the external tanks first, and they eject those when it comes time to actual fight enemy aircraft. Gaz can probably speak to that. Even though he's not Air Force. I wouldn't insult you like that, Gaz. You're my friend. I would never accuse you of being in the chair force. Damn it. There we go. Yeah, so you want the tracks to be level with the bottom of the little deck plate there. You want it to sit in the little flutes, the little spurs, I guess whatever you want to call it, little extensions to fit into the recesses that are in the hull. And the third part is you want the cradle to sit directly under that fuel tank. I mean, I guess I could cut the fuel tanks off later. I may do that before I paint the tanks. But notice some companies don't put the fuel tanks on the back of the tank. Yeah. So that's them on parade. And then when they actually get into combat, which is when they would be on your table, these suckers get punched off. There's literally a lever that I think it's the driver can pull, and it literally just drops these suckers off. Because it's not smart to go into combat with gigantic friggin' fuel drums on the back of your vehicle. And everyone makes fun of the Soviets for doing that, except they don't do that. At least they're not supposed to. What we've seen the Russian army doing recently in Ukraine, all bets are off. I feel like I've been defending the Russian military for pretty much my whole online life, or whatever you want to call it, my whole online career. And then this thing in the Ukraine starts. And not only can I not defend them anymore on a moral point, but they're also just friggin' incompetent, man. I feel literally embarrassed. It's like I stood up for you guys all this time. I mean, never mind what you're doing is monstrous. You're also just doing it stupid. What the hell's wrong with you guys? Alright, so everyone knows about when you put the wheels on a vehicle, before the glue's completely dry, you put it down on a mat and you give it the old 4-point squeeze, just to make sure that your tank's not doing the whole, doesn't get the hinky-chinky with it. Doesn't start doing the Will Smith. You want to make sure the tank sits flush on the mat. So, there we go. Don Rickles. Yeah, Don Rickles is great. I like Crap Game. He's just not my favorite character. He might be like my second or third. I like Telly Savalas as Big Joe. And I like, Crap Game. Because I kind of either was Crap Game or I was the guy who worked for Crap Game. So I always have a little bit of a soft spot for him. Okay, where are the instructions? Okay, it looks like the thicker part, or the taller part of the side plate actually goes toward the front of the vehicle. Okay? I was about to put those on backwards. I wonder if I was supposed to put those on first. And that would explain why I had trouble with the wheels. Oh, the wheels just came off anyway. Alright, I get a chance to test my theory. This may not be the right order. In fact, I'm almost sure it isn't. Well, hopefully that'll stay on there this time. This will get us to a nice stopping point in the hull. Oops. Before I put that on there. Just so gas isn't ashamed of me. That's a little fragile at the moment, the side skirts, so I will leave those alone for now and switch over to another part of the vehicle. The wheels have indents. If they don't fit, they're on the wrong side. Yeah, totally. I saw that. My tricky part for me was trying to get those little cradles to fit into the fuel tanks that weren't supposed to be there. But I did get it. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, and to Ron's point, the wheels do have like you'll see this one here has 2, this one here has 3, and they're not perfectly symmetrical. So it's literally impossible to glue. Well, it's not impossible. Trust me, someone would find a way. but it's supposed to help you out and make sure that you don't put the wrong tracks on the wrong side. I've seen people do that. And not to make fun of anybody, but I almost did it myself on the side skirts. Thanks for not calling me RAF, buddy. No, I would not do that to you. Some emotional scars can never be healed once applied. No, I would never do that. So long as you don't say I'm Army, I won't. If you don't say I'm Army, I won't say you're. I made like a fighter combat reference, and I was like, Gaz can speak to it. I'm like, oh, I may have just implied he was in the Air Force. Sorry. Let me pull back on that real quick. And anyone in the Air Force watching this chat, American or Royal Air Force, relax, you guys get it. I'm sure you have nothing nice to say about the U.S. Army, and damn sure not the U.S. Marine Corps. So it's all fine. It's all part of the game. We all make fun of each other. Another thing I like about the Battlefront miniature stuff is that most of the vehicles have a video build tutorial on their website to help those less experienced build the minis. Yeah, I probably should have watched that video before I started this one, to be honest. Because I keep having to refer to this thing here. Okay, I see what's going on. Now, is that supposed to curve up or down? I see what's going on. Because I did screw this up once. Not on a Battlefront vehicle. On a PSC Tiger. Same scale, 15 mil. And I royally screwed up the smoke exchangers. On a hobby video that was already published. I had to like put out another... It wasn't a video, it was like a photo series. Or a photo montage, whatever you want to call it. Wow, that was a clean fit. That was nice. The PSC miniature was nowhere near that good when it came to smoke dischargers. That was a beautiful fit. Not gonna lie. Sometimes a Battlefront miniature will make you look good on camera. Well, this guy knows what he's doing. Alright, smoke dischargers are in place. Hello, Walkabout Games! Welcome to the chat. Thanks very much, everybody, for coming out. Okay, decision time. I will not make this particular tank the commander. So I will use the closed hatch. You basically get two options, a closed hatch and an open hatch. Up a little bit because Gaz is watching me. Do not put a mold line in the miniature when Gaz is watching. He will haunt you in your dreams. He will come for you in the night. You have mold lines on your miniature. What the hell do you think you're doing? Oh my god, Gaz, I'm sorry. Now, one thing about Russian tanks is let me check the box, make sure that let me put it this way, let me make sure they're correct. Yes, they are correct. Alright, specifically, here's a quick hobby tip, guys. Because there's no, like, guide for this, or no, like, groove that helps you out with this. I mean, the picture shows you the right way. But Russian tanks, unlike almost everyone else's tanks, the hinge is in the front of the turret. Like, that's not exactly straight. Hold on, let me fix this, guys. Russian tanks, the hinge is in the front of the turret. There we go. So like that. Again, I apologize for I can't like get up and focus because it's not auto-focusing for me for some reason. But the hinge is in the front of the turret. So when you open, when the TC stands up on the hatch, and he opens up the turret, he actually has a little bit of cover, like immediately to his front. It won't stop a tank shell, obviously, but it'll stop like small arms fire, things like that. Some people say that's because the Russians are cowards and they have to hide behind. I think it's a better design. It does impede your view and your vision, so maybe that's the reason why NATO tanks, Israeli tanks, a lot of other tanks have the hatch open up usually to the behind the TC or to the side. But when you're doing a Russian-built battle tank, most of the time the hatch opens up to the front, so that hinge and any kind of like little equipment and stuff like that, that stuff pops open to the front. It also makes it a lot harder to use the machine gun, which is probably another reason why most of our tanks don't do it that way. You make me sound like the Baba Yaga. That tiger was a pain. It came out okay in the end. Did you build the same kit walkabout games? Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about my video? Because it came out okay. Actually came out great. It's one of my favorite 15mm miniatures I ever built. But I spent more time on this 15mm miniature than I've spent on some armies. And I mean, PSC makes great kits. They just, I mean, my 15mm Panthers from PSC have 45 parts in them. My 15mm model has 45 parts in it. Well, let me be precise. The kit comes with 45 parts. And then within that kit you can build 3 different versions. So you don't wind up using all 45 parts, but you wind up using like 35 parts in a 15mm miniature. So yeah, they don't mess around. It was fun for this guy, because this was literally gifted to me, I think by Pierce Brand, back when he used to work with Iron Fist Miniature, Iron Fist Publishing, when they still had the, I think they sold the Battlefront license. I wrote a lot of articles, I made a lot of videos. I've never had a bad thing to say about Battlefront, the game system. It's my favorite miniature system, pretty much straight out. And I've made no secret about that. So, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Full disclosure, I've gotten some free books, some free miniatures and stuff like that. I will say this: it was all after the fact. They didn't send, stuff to me and said, "No, please write us a nice article." They're like, "Hey, this guy likes our stuff. Let's send him something." Ron D says 45 parts. That is a few less than a scale model at 1:100 scale. No, I'm dead serious. I don't think this Tiger had 45 parts in it. And again, you don't wind up using all 45 parts. But the Panthers, I totally remember had 45 parts in it. Let me get one of my Panthers. It's not quite as well painted. I didn't have an airbrush yet, so I had to do these by hand. So I apologize for that in advance. But they're still pretty good. Oof, jeez. One thing I gotta do, I gotta put some anti-gloss on these decals. Again, these are older miniatures. Yeah, you see that shine? I'm trying to catch it on purpose now. There it is. Look at that. Ugh. I have some matte varnish I can slap on there. But again, this is an older miniature before I knew what matte varnish was. So yeah, this kit from PSC had 45 parts in it. You probably used, because again, a lot of it was for different versions. There's different versions of the Panther, historically. So I think I might have used at least 35 parts in it. The biggest thing, anyone who's built a PSC kit knows, is the way they do their tracks. So the way they do their tracks does come out with more of a, more of a detailed and realistic look. However, that's because of the way they build their tracks. The tracks are separate from the wheels, and the tracks are in 2 parts. So what was a pain of an ass enough, a big enough pain in the ass on this, was literally just. I actually prefer, if it sounds like I'm bashing on Battlefront, I actually prefer the Battlefront way, because I don't need these to look like scale models. First of all, they already do look like scale models. But like this is literally one piece. In Plastic Soldier Company, this would be at least 4 pieces. The wheels, top track, bottom track, and of course the join point is right in the front and right in the back, right where you're going to see it. So you have to get it perfect. And that's 3 pieces, and this back piece in the back would be another piece. So, oh my god. I mean, the miniature does come out looking awesome, but they do make you work for it. But be gone, Germans. You lost the war. On to my Russians. Why finish building this thing and then close out the stream. Hello, Piotr. Oh my god, Piotr. How you doing, man? Battle Group is my fave rules compared to battle games. Yeah, I honestly, for World War II miniature games, Battlefront just literally, I mean, I know a lot of people like Bolt Action. I know a lot of people like Flames of War. I love Flames of War 4th edition compared to 3rd edition. I believe 4th edition fixed a lot of problems. And I love what Battlefront has done with Team Yankee. In a lot of ways, how they've repackaged Fate of a Nation to where it's no longer a World War II sequel, it's now a Team Yankee prequel, and how they rebalanced some of the values so that the right tanks are better than the other right tanks, you know, the hierarchy of tanks or whatever, because in 3rd edition it was a little screwed up. I think Battlefront was a bit, or I should say Flames of War versions 1 through 3 were a little bit a victim of their own success, because it turned out to be a fantastically popular game. Everybody wanted it, and so everybody wanted more stuff from it. They have to publish more books, more miniatures, more models, more books, more rules, more books, more rules, and pretty soon the whole thing becomes this organic mess where it, it's not built from the ground up. And now some of the rules don't agree with each other, and there's all these problems. And some of the rules don't make sense. Like, you can see what the intent was, but yeah, it didn't work. Like things like infiltrate rule, pad and command rule, stormtrooper move rule. I mean, are you goddamn kidding me? Yes, the space-time continuum works differently for you because you're wearing a different color shirt. Oh, I see. Okay, I just had this in here perfectly. What the hell? I started talking trash about 3rd edition. That's what happened. Seriously, I just had this in here, right? Okay, clearly I'm doing something galactically stupid here. You guys saw me try fit this in here, right? I'm not going crazy. Alright, I'll have to come back to this. I'm seriously screwing something up here. Oh no. That actually really pisses me off. I just had that in there perfectly. I was talking about 3rd edition rules, and something here went horribly wrong. I don't want to force it. Alright, clearly I did something wrong here. I'll figure that. Hold on. They don't give you a good picture of it from behind. Oh no, I may have to look at that build video. Okay, the log is supposed to be significantly below. Oh, okay, I see what I did. Hello, Dopey. I was like, I just had that in there, and then I was talking with you guys, and now I put glue on it, and the miniature literally doesn't go together. Like, off by a lot, but that was just me being stupid. Sorry about that. Crisis averted. Yeah, I saw you had it tri-fitted. Cool. Okay, so let me catch up with the chat here. Yeah, Jen says, hello, Piotr. Hope things are a little bit more mellow for you. No, not really, but I'll get into that later. Don't worry about it. Yeah, Piotr, thanks for swinging by. I understand that you're going to be on and off for a little while. Please stay safe, and please, just keep in touch and let us know when everything's settled down for you. What is my favorite scale for tanks? My favorite scale for tanks, honestly, in games, well, that's almost a complicated question. For games, it's 1 to 10,000, literally page liter scale, because that's when the games really start to make sense. However, that's not really practical for miniatures. So when it comes to miniatures, honestly, I think it's going to be 1 to 50. It's going to be 1 to 100, 15 mil. I mean, I've got a fair collection of 20 millimeter tanks, and they look awesome. I don't really get into the big 28 scale stuff, because a 28 millimeter tank scale game is just, I mean, others will disagree. I don't want to, disrespect anybody, but the game itself becomes kind of silly at that point. I got nothing but respect for the miniatures. I've seen 20 millimeter miniatures of tanks, and they look amazing. So if you're more of a scale model guy, that totally makes sense. But if you're into the tactical realism or the historical accuracy, you really shouldn't be doing tanks in 28 millimeter, to be perfectly honest. Unless we're talking about very, very early tanks, like literally World War I tanks, or very early World War II. And even then, it's going to be a stretch. Tanks just don't engage enemy targets at that range, unless you're playing on like a 20-foot table. In which case, where is your game? I want to come watch. But honestly, for miniature games, 6 mil would be the best, but you can barely tell what the tank is at 6 mil. So 15 is like that middle of the road, where you get, okay, the miniature's not going to look as good as a 28 millimeter tank, and the game certainly is not going to behave like it should at 15 mil. That's where you get the Team Yankee tank parking lots. That's less a fault of the game, and it's more a fault of the players. Like, why are you using your tanks like that? And why is your army nothing but tanks? So, long story short, take your 50th shot. It's 15 mil. Alright, speaking of which, go on to the next part here. Alright, so the Snorkel goes on the back of the turret with the... Okay, it goes on like that. I don't know how it goes on there. Yeah, it goes on the back. So, oh, I see what's going on. Alright, did the box just lie to me? Oh, no, it didn't. I see what's going on. There's a groove in the side of the Snorkel here. Pretty sure that's a Snorkel. And, gotcha. So if it sounds if I sound silly talking about a tank Snorkel, for those of you who don't know, it's actually a thing. This pipe is meant to sort of, it's a kit that kind of goes on the back of the tank. And I don't really have that on there right yet. It's supposed to be level on there. Okay, it's a kit that comes off the back of the tank, in theory. And of course you don't do this in combat. You do this during an uncontested river crossing, where the enemy has blown up the bridges. And this thing folds up on top of the turret, and it gets to be like literally like that high, because this all extends. This is like a telescoping thing. And it comes out to like that high. And it's supposed to allow the tank to travel under like up to 30 feet of water for a limited distance. And it pipes oxygen, it pipes air down into the engine, and exhaust gases out of the engine, so that it's like a Snorkel on an old World War II submarine, and allows the tank to travel a short distance underwater. Because again, rivers are a thing in Russia. And even though the Russians didn't plan to fight with this tank in Russia, they were very aware of how rivers affect armored combat. Jen says 1-to-1, baby. All right, Jen. Let me know when I can come to your table and play a big tank battle at 1-to-1 scale. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong by any means. Typically, guys, I choose not to magnetize my tanks. One of the many things I like about Battlefront miniatures is that it gives you this pin so that you basically don't have to magnetize your tanks if you don't want to. Now, does that fit inside or... Oi! Make sure I'm on camera here. Alright, pro tip, especially if you're a sloppy modeler like me, do not try to put this directly into your tank until this is fully dry. So what winds up happening is that little bit of glue that spills around the outside glues to your turret, or glues your turret to your hull, and now your turret doesn't rotate. So I'm just going to put that off to the side for now. And we're almost done, guys. We only have a few pieces left. Again, I'm going to leave off these mine clearer blades. I'm not really going to use those for this particular model. I basically only got... I'm not going to use this open hatch. So we're down to... like literally just a few pieces now. 3 pieces left. Sweet. We just have to go to that big tank museum in England. Begins with a B. Yes, you're talking about Bovington. 1-to-44, that is 10 millimeter. It looks great on a 5x9 table, no real parking lots. Yeah, I've got some 10 mil tanks, just not nearly enough of them. But I do have a few, and none of them are handy right now. I don't know if you'd call these miniatures, but I have an old school, it's not terribly well painted either. I have an old school, one of Bill's favorites, the M551 Sheridan in 10 mil. Extra little machine gun box on the top. And a World War II Valentine in 10 mil. So I've got a few, I've got a lot of German stuff in 10 mil. But nothing terribly handy, and not nearly enough to actually start gaming in it. Alright, let's add these few little bits. Ooh, this thing goes on the hull, I think. Oh, it's either or. You either put the mud flap on the front or the mine clearing spades. So we're not using the mine clearing spades, we're going to put the mud flap. That is this part right here. Really? Sorry guys, I know I'm not... Huh. Okay. That's not the best join point, but I believe you. Let's check one more time, guys. They like that thing joining right off the nose tip of the glacis plate there, but alright. I will go with what you guys want. It doesn't really look right to me. Hold on a second, guys. Yeah, okay, so you see these little teeth here under the nose of the glacis? The kit has those. Right there. So that makes sense. And then according to the front of the box, they're looking for that. Oh, it is underneath it. Okay. Yeah, these instructions aren't the most clear. That's gotta be it. If I'm wrong, the hell with it, I'm wrong. I don't think I am. And if I'm not wrong, the right way looks derpy as shit. So I'm gonna do it the way I want to do it. Which again, I'm 99% sure is right, but that looks pretty good. Notice how that piece is kind of curved? It's supposed to be. It's literally a sheet of like thick rubber or plastic. It's like a mud guard on a semi truck. It's just literally to keep too much water and muck and filth and slime and putrescence and a few more Princess Bride quotes to splash up underneath the tank when moving at speed. Again, the T-80 was kind of a nippy tank. Would do at least 45 miles an hour on a paved road. That little shield is funny. Oh, thanks. First of all, welcome to the stream, Tough Ears, and I'm 99% sure I got that right. It's just kind of strange how they put that in the instructions. Okay, we're down to just 2 more pieces. They've got 2 very clearly marked little divots that your little pegs fit into, so no worries there. I think Tough Ears has built this kit extensively. Just curious, Tough Ears, did you leave any of these mine clearing plows on any of your vehicles, or did you leave them all like the regular standard T-80 model? I don't know if I'm going to use any of the mine clearing parts. I might use it on one, just so that one tank is a little distinctive. Just to be cool. Also, Tough Ears, you weren't here earlier. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to put these tanks in actual Russian markings. I may update the reactive armor panels a little. These little semicircular pieces on the front. I might update those a little bit and make them to Ukrainian T-80s. Okay, why are there 2 points there? I guess that's for the radio antenna. I've only got 1 machine gun. And 2 little wells. So that's a bit strange. Alright, the machine gun is definitely on the inboard side. Makes sense, because again, oh my god, there's like 4 more on here. I guess those are supposed to be radios? There's not that many radio antennae. A small little piece of this NSV machine gun did, a little bit of the sight there, almost did come off when I was cutting it off the sprue, so I may reinforce that later. It got a little bent off, but for now it's okay. And again, mine plows, not using for the moment. I gave this tank a closed hatch, so I won't be using the, I gave it a closed hatch, so I won't be using the open hatch piece. Everything else is now built and on the tank. And there we have it, folks. Our first T-80 has been built. 1 down, 4 to go. Time for a test. Oh, you epic failed. Yeah, these stupid barrels, I'm probably just going to cut off. Because it enrages me a little bit when model kit users leave these on here. These are supposed to detach before combat. So it also makes it so the turret can't fully rotate. So I may wind up removing those at a later time. Meanwhile, I'll compare it to scale versus one of my T-72s, also from Battlefront, and the scale looks pretty straight. So I don't have the same problem as I had with the T-54, which some people may mention later or try to ask later. Well, maybe the T-54 is a different size tank. You're absolutely right. The T-54 is supposed to be bigger. This tank is supposed to be larger than this tan tank is supposed to be larger than these 2 green ones. So just a thing to keep an eye on. And I've heard other people on streams and YouTube and so on kind of make the same lament. Is, oh my god, why is that, why was that Syrian T-54 box, why are the T-54 so small? Comparing it versus a Leopard 2, roughly the same time period, now that size difference makes sense, because the Leopard 2 is a beast. This is an older Leopard 2, this was actually my very first golden button, was my West German Army. First time I ever used an airbrush. So this is back in 2016. It's got a lot of dust on it. Sorry about that. So yeah, Gaz asked me earlier what sort of inspired me to build some of these models. I wanted somebody for these Leopards to fight. I mean, I had plenty of T-72s, but... And again, I might wind up putting these T-80s in Ukrainian markings. I don't know yet. I still haven't made up my mind about that. And then the other thing that they're going to run across, although they'll be on their own side, are these BMP-2s. I have BMP-2s and BMP-1s, as well as BTR-60s. And yeah, the scale looks pretty good there as well. These little these little BMP APCs. Whose turrets do turn. Thank you. 30mm autocannon and AT-5 Spandrel anti-tank missile up there on the top. Alright, cool. So my Russian force is ready for its reinforcements. Because I only had 17 T-72s. I needed a bunch more T-80s as well. 15 Russian APCs, 6 Hind gunships. I got a lot of Soviet stuff. Russian/Soviet, whatever you want to call it. And if you include my Iraqis, they've got even more. Although this is just Soviet equipment, it's not Soviet army anymore, clearly. Alright guys, so I will now put all this stuff away and just sort of focus on our little star of the show here. It's our completed build on the T-80. Probably going to keep this thing pretty simple on paint scheme when I get to the paint scheme. Prime it black, mostly from underneath, then give it the base color mostly on top. That way I get those sort of fall shadows in there. And then one thing I like to do is with the airbrush still, is put a lot of brown along the bottom. Like it's been driving through a lot of mud and muck and grime and so on and so forth. Let me see if I can find an example of what I'm talking about here. So something like this. These are some metal PT-76s because I didn't have enough Soviet stuff. I actually made these up for the NVA assault on. Oh God, I can't remember the name of it now. The one time the NVA actually used tanks in the American part of the Vietnam War, they used a bunch of these PT-76s, like 11 of them, overrunning Charlie Company 5th Special Forces Group at a fire base near Khe Sanh, February 6th, 1968. I can literally remember everything except the name of the friggin' fire base. It's just escaping me at the moment. I want to say Long Binh, but I know that's not right. Long Binh is a much larger base down near Saigon. But anyway, that's that brown stuff I was talking about. I use brown. I use the airbrush to put like a brown spray underneath it just to make it look like it's been driving through some vehicles or driving through some terrain. A better example might be on some of these trucks. Yeah, this is actually a better example. So Gaz was asking before about 28 mil. Here's some 28 millimeter multi-A trucks, if I'm even saying that right, multi-air trucks for Germans in Deutsches Afrika Korps. And yeah, this is that brown stuff I was talking about. So I do that with an airbrush. There's no way I do that shit by hand. So I'll do a little bit of that along the bottom of these T-80s. I will probably spray it with a lighter green than I intend to end up with. Maybe some browns to make it a little bit more modern. That way I can be either modern Russians or modern Ukrainians. And the reason I paint with a lighter, higher contrast than I really want, because number one, it's 15 mil. And 15 mil, I find, tends to look better in lighter colors, sharper contrast, and then with much darker, almost comic booky lines for the dark wash to really make the shape of the model pop. This is especially true in modern vehicles, modern warfare vehicles, because modern warfare vehicles almost never come monochrome. They come with some kind of camouflage scheme on them, and camouflage winds up doing exactly what it's supposed to, break up the outline of your vehicle. That's great for actual tactical combat. It's terrible for your miniature because it kind of ruins your miniature. So I always kind of overemphasize the color of the base vehicle and then overemphasize the actual dark lines so that you can still see the shape of the vehicle, probably much more than you would at that scale in real life, just to make the miniature pop a little bit more. Because by the time you put this camouflage miniature in terrain on your table, especially if you have a good thick table, with a lot of thick terrain, and then you put this down, you might actually lose the miniature, or at the very least, it won't look as cool, I find. So I will finish up the chat here, and then we'll close out the stream. Once I take a drink here. Just iced tea, guys. Alright, so yeah, thanks very much again, Piotr, for coming by. We talked about favorite scales of tanks from Gaz. Gaz, yeah, or I should say Chris. Yes, I had a dry fit in. I apologize. I appreciate it. Okay, so Gaz says Bovington is great. Duxford has a few as well, although it's focused more on aircraft. Yep, I've heard of both of those museums. I haven't been to either of them yet. But I've been to England a few times, but I've never actually been to those museums. I have East German, Russian, and British Army of the Rhine so far. Yes, so far I have a ton of Soviet stuff, like literally a ton of it, and West Germans. I have a scattering of Israelis, not nearly enough for an army. Honestly, I'm not going to lie, I'm very, very biased on this. But my favorite 15mm models for tanks are still my Marines for Gulf War. I was actually in the military for this war. This was originally the M60 that came with the Ryan's Leatherneck box from Battlefront Team Yankee. And then I had to add my own reactive armor panels. Because in the Gulf War, the Marines were using the M60A1 upgraded with the first generation ERA reactive armor panels. And of course I had my own radio antenna on there. And yeah, there she is. I got that, I got some LAVs. Long story short, take your 29th shot. I've got a Marine Corps Desert Storm Force. I used Team Yankee as a base, and then I built up from there. Because they don't make a Desert Storm Force. So I had to kind of make my own. And again, you see where I'm talking about that brown that goes in the bottom of my tanks. Like it's been going through some terrain. So I've got an Iraqi force at 10 mil. I'm sorry, at 15 mil. Looking at my little chest here. My little display case. I got an Iraqi force at 15 mil. Marine Corps force at 15 mil. West Germans, that includes Martyrs, POHs, Leopard 2s. I've got a big Soviet force, upwards of 100 infantry, 30 AFVs, including 2 Shilkas, 6 Hind gunships. I've got 1 Apache. I've got a bunch of Cobras, although the Cobras are in Marine Corps markings for Gulf War. A handful of Israelis. I really should build some more Israelis so I can do Israeli 15 mil. That might be my next box. I mean, I've only got Iraqis at 15 mil, but it's close enough. I can say those are Egyptians or Syrians. I mean, who cares? Syrian tanks should really be more of a green or a green-brown mix. Iraqis can be, Iraqi sand here, and that would also work for Egyptians. Now, you'll do notice that I do have Iraqi flags and Iraqi tactical markings. Also, these are the tactical markings, this color and stripe on the muzzle brake for the T-55. But again, it'll be close enough. I'm not going to build another whole army of Egyptians or Syrians when I already have Iraqis. It's close enough. And yeah, one of the reasons I was building these particular kits is I was getting ready to start building for Americans as well. Again, I'm not sure if I'm building these T-80s in 1980 Soviet or 2022 Ukrainian. It can go either way. That way I could put, in fact, I may just go ahead and put them as Ukrainian. Because again, I've got the Soviet force, which outside of that red star, which really shouldn't be there anyway, I could easily put Ukrainian T-80s versus Russian T-72s. I could easily do that. Especially if I use the T-72 with the K5 reactive armor panels. This is not a Battlefront kit. This is from Zvezda. I could easily do this. The scale is even correct. Yep. I could easily do that. And I mean, whenever it becomes comfortable to game in Ukraine, I would literally have that army ready. No problems at all. So I may go ahead and just do those in Ukrainian markings. What I'll probably do, to be honest with you, is just paint it like green and brown and leave it ambiguous. There's ways to temporarily apply, like for photos and videos, markings onto tanks. Basically, you put you make a tiny decal on very thin paper, and you blue tack it on there very carefully, and you use that for like select camera select camera shots or video angles, just to kind of show, hey, look, blue and yellow, this is a Ukrainian tank or whatever. Here come the Russians, without permanently changing the idea of your miniature. But I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Jennifer says mud flaps. If only they had naked ladies on them, you would have a gun rack in the rear window. Yeah, unfortunately, they don't allow American tank crews to do that kind of stuff anymore. American tank crews and vehicle crews, even sometimes aircraft crews, are allowed to personalize their vehicles to a certain degree. But there's like a whole subgenre of art, like B-17, B-24, and B-29 nose art. Some of those guys went off the fucking chain, man. Some of the nose art. And then there's also got some miniature hobbyists who try to replicate that in their modeling. Not really for tabletop games. You don't often use aircraft like B-24s, B-17s, B-29s in a tabletop game, but for scale modelers, who build aircraft, absolutely. Aviation history scale modelers, they go absolutely nuts on the nose art. To where, like, certain aircraft, the Memphis Belle, the Enola Gay, certain aircraft are famous. Some of the other aircraft on there are just like, oh my god, how did you not have a job working for Penthouse or Playboy? I mean, those magazines weren't around in the 40s, but you totally could have gotten a job there because, wow, they put a lot of effort into making some of their art a little NC-17, a little NSFW, and very, very detailed and very, very good, I'm not going to lie. Some of it's pretty crap. It looks like something a 6th grader would draw on his, the cover of his algebra textbook. 2 circles and 2 more smaller circles. But some of it looks really good. Because it was all done, in the field. So there was like at least one guy in the battalion who was an artist. Or one guy in the squadron who was an artist or who knew how to paint or something like that. And they basically gave him light duty for a month if he did everybody's nose art. And some of the stuff came out really awesome. So yeah, but nowadays that's definitely frowned upon. You're not supposed to do that. And that's not even like a modern day woke thing. There's the famous line in Apocalypse Now where the colonel laments that, you can't put naked women on your airplanes. You can't write, the word fuck on your airplanes because it's obscene. And then you go and you drop fire on people. A little bit of social commentary there, but that whole, more to our point, the regulations and the rules the Army and the Air Force impose on, how far and what subject matter vehicle and aircraft crews are allowed to personalize their vehicles is actually pretty strict. And you're allowed to do a lot, but there are certain lines you're not allowed to cross. So gone, unfortunately, are the days of like bomber nose art, because that stuff it wouldn't exactly be appropriate in the modern sensibilities, to be perfectly frank. But some of it was just really well done. Okay, so that little shield is funny. Yeah, we were talking about the mud flap along the front. Small children. Tough Ears, I'm not entirely sure what we were talking about. We were talking about small children before, because I was putting a fresh blade in my nose art. That's how we're talking about nose art now. I was putting a fresh blade in my razor, and I literally just said, oh guys, quick safety tip, always make sure you have a sharp blade in your knife. And then I immediately just dived in with all my fingers into literally a bowl of razor blades. And Gas was saying, hey, for any small children out there, don't do what Jim does. Ironically, he was in the middle of a safety tip. Don't jam all your fingers straight into a box of razor blades. It tends not to go well. There are step-by-step guides. I mentioned them. They can be really helpful. Oh, that was the link that you were trying to send through, Gas. I do not see that link. But I'll tell you what. I know what videos you're talking about, and I'll check them out before I build the other 4. Because I'm going to go ahead and build the other 4 off camera throughout the week. And, maybe, who knows what we'll do on Wednesday. Maybe we'll build another one on Wednesday. Or maybe we'll start the painting on Wednesday. Who knows? For our Wednesday stream. You got 9 T-80s. Okay. Says, Tough Ears. That's awesome. Gas, no link came through. The YouTube won't allow chats and link unless you are a mod. Okay, cool. Anyone can copy paste it into the search bar for a check on the page. Cool, either that or, Gaz, I think you're still in our Discord if you want. If not, there should be an invitation to our Discord in the channel. In the description of this video. Jen Lemon says, wow, a hobby stream with no major technical difficulties. I know, right? Didn't have actually any major problems this time. Don't jinx it, Jen. Hello, Ben. How you doing? Thanks very much for coming by. I mean, we're just about to sign off, Ben, but thanks for coming out nonetheless. Oh, mud flaps to keep the small children out. Oh, as you're running over small children? Yeah. No worries. One of the videos that came out from the outskirts of Kiev when that war was just getting started. It's not a tank. I think it's an anti-aircraft vehicle, anti-aircraft missile carrier. Ran over that little economy car in the streets outside of Kiev. It was like near Buka or Hormel or whatever one of those little towns were. the vehicle literally ran over the tank, and amazingly, the tank wasn't a tank; it was a self-propelled SAM carrier, but it was a tracked armored fighting vehicle. Literally ran over this guy's car, and while he was driving it, like at full speed, and amazingly, the guy survived. All right, guys, that catches up pretty much everything in the chat. I may have missed a couple comments in there. I do apologize, but we definitely got most of them. Thanks very much, everybody, as always, for coming out to the SitRep podcast. As always, we really appreciate it. Not sure what we're going to be doing on Wednesday, but we'll figure something out. I don't want to just build more T-80s. Maybe we'll just build a different vehicle, because I don't know if I'll have all these T-80s built and ready for painting by Wednesday. I mean, I could, but I do have a job, and it's getting busy again, and there's some stuff going on. And so who knows how that's going to work out, but I'll see what I can do. I also have other hobbies, not just miniature painting or wargaming. So there's other stuff I've got other commitments that I've got to take care of a lot of stuff. So we'll do what we can. But we'll definitely come out with something for Wednesday, that's for sure. I'm just not sure what it's going to be yet. Ideally, it would be to paint these T-80s, but we'll see what happens. But other than that, please, again, if you're watching this video, drop a like if you don't mind. I know I kind of say this every week, but those likes really do help. People have been much better with the likes lately, and we have been killing it on subscriptions. Which is really, really awesome. I really appreciate the support, guys. When you drop a like on the video, the algorithm notices it more. The great dark Eldritchian god that is the YouTube algorithm starts to notice you more and toss your channel as suggestions to more people. And those people come to our YouTube channel, and some of them decide to subscribe. So our community continues to grow, largely not only through our efforts, but also yours. Because this community is awesome, and we, again, appreciate all the support we can get. But for now, this is Ariskany Jim. Rounds complete. I don't really have much else for you guys. So thanks very much for all your support. Tango Mike for listening, and we'll be in touch with everybody very shortly. Thanks very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care.